Dr. Glenn oversees research and development for Novavax, an American vaccine maker. He joined us from his home outside of Washington, D.C.
This is a great moment, very gratifying moment to see that in our human trial, the kind of immune response we were hoping and we designed this for, in fact, have occurred.
Novavax vaccine contains a coronavirus protein to trigger an immune system response. In this case, the hope is that the immune system will make antibodies that neutralize the virus. In its human trials by Novavax, participants started creating antibodies without any dangerous side effects. How does the vaccine work?
Yep, so we make recombinant. That means we can take the gene, it's like the blueprint, it's like, and we put it in a cell. It's kind of like the 3D printer, if you will. And so how exactly you put in that blueprint and how it comes out of the 3D printer really matter. And again, we've got an art. So we actually look at the virus. The spike protein has a gene. We can actually make that protein just like it is in nature. And that creates a very strong immune response to the native structure of the protein. So you know, what you do is you immunize a person. The immune system recognizes this as foreign. It creates what's called an antibody. That antibody is made by, you know, blood cells. And now you have a little molecule that if it sees that spike protein, like a lock and key, it recognizes it with just exquisite specificity. So just sort of like a lock and key, we've made the right key for that lock, and it will neutralize the virus.
As of mid-August, there were nearly 50 COVID-19 vaccine trials underway in humans, with 7 in the final stage of development, or phase 3. One of those vaccines is being developed by U.S. biotech firm Moderna, which is recruiting 30,000 adults to be part of their clinical trials. In China, Sinopharm, Sinovac, and CanSino are also in the final testing stage. You're obviously fascinated with vaccines, flu vaccines, this sort of thing, MERS, SARS. What are some of the things that we've learned with flu vaccines or SARS or MERS that helped to where you are today with this?
That's actually a really good question. I mean, I think for my own team in a microcosm and for the field and you know, more people, we've learned so much. And I hate to say it again, type 1 fusion proteins. You know, we've learned a lot about this mechanism of infection and the structure and how to freeze it in the right configuration by working with flu, with RSV, with MERS, with SARS, with Ebola. And when this came about, I think many people had that understanding, and you know, I think you're seeing the fruits of that. So you know, usually you're trying to, you know, really manage your budget tightly. We're just going for broke for everything. We're doing manufacturing in parallel with our clinical trials. One of these vaccines is going to work, or maybe several of them, or maybe all of them. And it's been amazing. So unprecedented funding and unprecedented collaboration. So the companies are talking in a way they normally don't. You know, unprecedented mission, you know, to save the world. It's just been an amazing time. And I think what you'll see come out of this is the building or rebuilding of a great biotech vaccine structure that didn't exist. So the investments that are being made, I mean, Novavax was really just a little company. We'll become a vaccine player. It'll help us with flu. We have, as I told you, we've been working on flu. We have a much improved flu vaccine, but to get it commercialized, we didn't have the scale. Now we will. So it's going to have a good side effect, if you will, on building the infrastructure of biotech and especially vaccine biotech. It's just really phenomenal. This is going to happen again. We know that these viruses mutate, flu viruses mutate. We actually kind of suspected that that cluster of pneumonias in January might be a new flu strain. So we're prepared to make a pandemic flu vaccine. So I think next time you'll see us ready, a little faster. In fact, what is happening today wouldn't be possible 10 years ago.
Typically, it can take 10 to 15 years to bring a vaccine to market. The World Health Organization is aiming to deliver 2 billion doses of an approved vaccine by the end of 2021. And the U.S. task force overseeing vaccine development, called Operation Warp Speed, has set a target to deliver 300 million doses of a vaccine by January 2021. I know that there are a lot of people out there watching this interview saying, I want the vaccine now. How quickly can it get to market?
I think that the next big step for this is to show that it works. Show that, in a placebo-controlled trial, so there's no confusion. Nobody's wondering, well, does that drug work or not work? Randomized, blind, placebo-controlled trial. If I came to you and said, hey, I have this quarter, and I flipped it, and I got heads every time. You said, well, how many times did you flip it? I said, well, twice. Well, you wouldn't believe that. So you would know that I just didn't have a big enough sample size to show that, in fact, it should be 50-50. So that's going to be the issue. Conducting these trials, getting enough cases where you have a really statistically, unassailable level of protection, and that's the next step. That could happen in the fall. Maybe by December. That could be really, a time when that happens. So we're all optimistic that that's going to be the time frame when we get out, do the trials, collect enough cases, so that's not just a random coin flip. And I think there's several, vaccines. So there's several bets on that could work. One of the things we saw in our results is everybody got what we call a strong neutralized antibody. That's good. That's really what you want is a population to, and that's what would happen if everyone got infected. So ideally, we could get everybody infected, have perfect herd immunity, but the cost of that is just staggering. So we can't afford to let everybody get sick. It'll be, well, it's a pandemic. However, it's possible for a vaccine to achieve that.
Once a vaccine is produced, then comes the question of who gets access to it. In May, President Xi Jinping vowed to make any vaccine produced in China to be a global public good. Many countries have already stated that they will prioritize vaccinating frontline health workers. However, fast-tracking a vaccine has raised some concerns from the scientific community about whether there will be enough clinical trial participants to ensure the safety and efficacy of a drug. And Dr. Glenn, one of the things that people are concerned about is this inequality that, perhaps, everybody in the United States is going to get it, but I don't live there. I live in some remote village somewhere else, and am I going to get that kind of protection? What about getting the vaccine to enough people? It's really been a question mark, hasn't it?
I don't, what I'm seeing. So we work with the HHS is in charge of this. So they're in charge of Operation Warp Speed, and they brought the Army in. So who better, logistically to distribute stuff than the Army? And they are, I can tell you, they've got plans and the equipment, and they are making contracts with companies, and we are working in parallel. So the moment that the vaccines are approved, I think they're poised to go out and distribute a vaccine. So normally, you would do a trial, you do a little bit of work in manufacturing, and each step you do a little bit more. We're all assuming, the government is assuming our vaccine will work and get licensed. And they said, make as much as possible. And so our obligation is to have 100 million doses by, the first quarter. And so you've got 6 companies that have those kind of orders in there. Somebody's going to get there. There's going to be a lot of vaccine. I think you're going to see a massive plan for distribution. I think a completely different mentality about administration of vaccine. This is just people walk up, they get a shot, maybe have a little record, and that's I think that's in place.
So a year from now, when we chat, what's the landscape going to look like then? I mean, will we have turned the corner on this, you think?
Absolutely. I think you'll be walking around without a mask. You won't be reading about people dying. It'll be completely different. We might be debating whether we need a booster or something happy like that, or should we get back to getting better flu vaccines? I just think you're going to see an absolute transformation of our society back to, whatever normal was, we'll be back.
And we'll look forward to that. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Good questions. Thank you.